Hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m. bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. Now, we're going to have a bit of a shorter show this week, obviously with events that happened last Thursday. The cup fixtures that were meant to take place on Sunday were postponed. So we actually only have two games to talk about, and then we'll have a look at the fixtures coming up on this Sunday. So normally we put the news kind of in the middle to break up the results and the fixtures, but because we only have two games to talk about, I'm just going to put the news at the start. So, as I've just mentioned there, the cup games have been postponed. That determining round of the cup and the plate, they are now being played on September the 25th. So not this weekend, but next weekend. And instead of those league fixtures that were going to go ahead on the 25th, those league fixtures that were being played on the 25th have now been moved to December the 18th, which was kind of the start of kind of the bit of the winter break for the league, and to try and avoid postponements with frozen pitches and the like. So they've now lost one of those weeks of the winter break. Not ideal, but not a lot the league could have done about it. The other thing about December the 18th is it is the day of the World Cup final. So we better all be hoping that England don't get to the final. Otherwise, there won't be much attendance over the course of the games on that afternoon. But yeah, so games on September the 25th have now been moved to December the 18th, so that the determining round of the Cup can now go on to September the 25th. Right, news from Division 1 South East, and Hounslow finally have got enough players to field a side, and they are getting underway this weekend, just a month after everybody else. So they are currently 11th in Division 1 South East. As I say, 3 or 4 games behind the majority of teams in that division. So they're going to start. Only Wyndham Town are below them, as they've played games, haven't got a point yet, but of course have a negative goal difference because they've been losing games. Hounslow are in 11th, but it's those two sides that come up against each other this weekend. But of course, get on to all the fixtures later. And then finally, some news from Division 1 Midlands. Doncaster Rovers Belles player Nadia Khan went away on international duty with Pakistan, and in their 5-0 victory scored 4 of their goals, and becomes the first female player to score a hat-trick for Pakistan. So congratulations to you, Nadia. You've gone down in the history books of women's football in Pakistan. As I said, plays for Doncaster Rovers Belles, so no doubt we'll be back in action for them shortly. Right. Let's have a look then at the results that took place over the past 7 days. We'll start in Division 1 North. You'll see there really aren't that many fixtures. So Middlesbrough 0, Newcastle United 1. This game taking place on the day of Queen Elizabeth II's death. Now, I saw some people that were saying that this game shouldn't have gone ahead. I believe, well, in my opinion, the reason that it did, if you consider that kickoff was at 7:45, the death was announced at 6:30, so an hour and 15 minutes before the game was supposed to kick off. So by that point, Newcastle were already there and getting ready. So that game did go ahead. It finished a 1-0 victory to Newcastle. Lauren Robson with the only goal of the game. And then a couple of days ago on Tuesday, Portsmouth 2, Watford 0 in the Southern Premier Division. Again, after the postponements all on Sunday, football got back underway on Tuesday. So this game going ahead as planned. Portsmouth winning by 2-0. Danielle Lane in the 11th minute and Nicole Barrett in the 20th minute, providing the 2-0 victory for Portsmouth over Watford. Portsmouth remain unbeaten so far this season. So just those two games to talk about. So we'll have a look at the Southern Premier Division table, where Portsmouth remain in second, but now are only 2 points behind Oxford rather than 5 points behind Oxford after winning that game in hand. Watford have dropped down from 4th to 5th because of losing the 2 goals and goal difference. They dropped below Milton Keynes Dons. So that's the only changes. A note on the tables, I'm bringing back the movement arrows from next week because of... obviously, the leagues have started to sort themselves out now. You've got that clear distinction between the top of the table and the bottom of the table. You're not going to have the likes of Crawley, who are currently in 11th in the Southern Premier Division, winning a game and jumping up to 2nd. The highest they can go is about 4 places up. So I am going to bring back the arrows from next week. So that will just help you to see how the leagues are changing week on week. Obviously, if you're listening to the audio version of this, I will still run down the entire table so that as you're listening, you can see where all the teams are. But yep, in the Southern Premier Division, Portsmouth remain in 2nd. Watford dropped down from 4th to 5th. Division 1 North, the win for Newcastle climbs them up a couple of places from 4th to 2nd. So they're now 2nd on 9 points. They're 3 points behind the leaders, Barnsley, who have got maximum 12 from 12. And Middlesbrough remain where they are, which was 7th place, just with the 1-0 loss. So, not a huge amount of change in Division 1 North, apart from Newcastle climbing up a couple of places, which we kind of expected because they are, they pushed Liverpool Feds all the way last season, so expected them to be up and around there again. So Newcastle there in 2nd, Middlesbrough remain in 7th. And that is all of the results from the past week. As I said, there was only 2 to talk about. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a look at the fixtures coming up in the next 7 days. This shouldn't take too long either because we've got this weekend's fixtures only. So, Northern Premier Division, Bournemouth St Michael's against Burnley, Derby County take on AFC Fylde, Huddersfield Town face West Bromwich Albion, Liverpool Feds against Stoke City, Loughborough Lightning take on Brighouse Town, Nottingham Forest against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So, starting at the top there, Burnley, I think are going to have relatively easy game against Bournemouth St Michael's. Burnley joint top of the league with Wolves at the moment. Derby against Fylde is going to be an interesting one. I think the game of the day in the Northern Premier Division, and I believe actually the game of the day across the entire FA Women's National League, is that one at the bottom there, Nottingham Forest against Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's 3rd versus 1st. Only 1 point in it at the moment, but Forest have a game in hand. Forest on maximum points at the moment, haven't conceded a goal, scored 10 from 3 and haven't conceded. Wolves have scored 15 from 4 and only conceded 1. So it's going to be a great game down at Eastwood on Sunday. I'll be there. And I was chatting to Nick from the Wolves Women podcast yesterday, and I was saying how it almost feels, even at this early stage, like this is A, a very important fixture, B, there's a hint of unstoppable force and immovable object in this game that means it just has all the makings of a 0-0 draw. So we'll see what happens between those two sides. This big game, this huge game, top of the table clash has all the makings of a 0-0 draw in it. But we'll see what happens. So those are the fixtures in the Northern Premier Division. In the Southern Premier Division, Ipswich against Bridgewater United, Oxford United take on Billericay Town, Portsmouth face London Bees, Watford take on Cheltenham Town, and Plymouth Argyle face Crawley Wasps. So Plymouth against Crawley, that's the bottom 2 coming up against each other, but Crawley do have a game in hand over Plymouth. Oxford against Billericay Town, Oxford top with maximum points, so you'd perhaps fancy them in that one as well. Portsmouth London Bees is 2nd against 3rd, so that's going to be a tough test for both sides. We'll see if Portsmouth can continue their unbeaten start to the season. Division 1 North, Bradford City against Durham Sestra, Hull City take on Stockport County, Merseyrail against Barnsley, Middlesbrough face York City, Newcastle United take on Chorley, Norton Stockton Ancients will face Leeds United. So, again, in here, we've got top versus bottom in the form of Merseyrail against Barnsley, a side with no points yet this season against a side with maximum points this season. So you would expect Barnsley to get 15 from 15, but of course nothing is a given in football. Where else have we got here? Bradford against Durham Cester are two sides towards the bottom. Stockport County going away to Hull. It will be a tough one for Stockport as well. Hull currently in 5th and going steadily at the start of the season. Stockport only with that lone draw so far this season. They find themselves in the relegation zone. And Newcastle United against Chorley as well. Newcastle, of course, really wanting to keep that pressure up on Barnsley. They don't want to drop too far back early on. Coming up against Chorley, who are in 9th at the moment. So Newcastle United will be going for another victory. Division 1 Midlands then. Lincoln City against Sporting Cowser. Long Eaton United against Doncaster Rovers Belles. Northampton Town take on Sheffield. Solihull Moors will face Leek Town. Stourbridge take on Peterborough United. And Wem Town against Leafield Athletic. So fixtures to look out for in this one for me: Stourbridge against Peterborough United, 2nd and 3rd, identical records, both on 9 points, but Stourbridge have scored a couple more. So I think that's going to be one of the big tests for Stourbridge at this early stage in Tier 4. They're doing so well so far, being in 2nd. We'll see if they can keep it up throughout the rest of the season. Solihull Moors top of the table on the same number of points as Stourbridge and Peterborough, but obviously that 9-0 win on opening day really helped Solihull Moors out. Elsewhere, Lincoln City and Sporting Cowser. Lincoln City, of course, who struggled at the start of the season but got that convincing win a couple of weeks ago now. Maybe that the break last weekend didn't help them and maybe stopped that momentum they were starting to build. Northampton Town against Sheffield. Northampton bottom of the table at the moment. And Long Eaton United against Doncaster Rovers Belles. Long Eaton United, one of 3 teams that are on 3 points at the moment. They're the ones, though, because of the goal difference, that are in the relegation zone. Again, because of that heavy defeat on opening day to Solihull Moors. Division 1 South East. AFC Wimbledon against Actonians. Hashtag United against Cambridge United. London Seaward take on Cambridge City. Queen's Park Rangers against Norwich. And Wyndham Town against Hounslow. So as I said, game at the bottom there. The bottom 2, Wyndham Town and Hounslow. Hounslow finally get their season underway. Now they have registered enough players. So they take on Wyndham Town. So one of those sides won't be on 0 points by the end of Sunday. We'll see how that pans out. Elsewhere, Hashtag United, top of the table at the moment. They face Cambridge United. And Norwich City, who are in 2nd on 10 points, the same as Hashtag, have got to go away to 5th place Queen's Park Rangers. So it's 1st against 4th and 2nd against 5th. So a couple of good fixtures towards the top of Division 1 South East early on here in this league. And then 3rd versus 9th in the form of London Seaward against Cambridge City. So London Seaward will be hoping to potentially capitalise on a slip from Hashtag or Norwich. Finally then, Division 1 South West. AFC St Austell take on Southampton Women. Cardiff City against Exeter City. Keynsham Town against Larkhall Athletic. Portishead take on Moneyfields. And Swindon Town take on AFC Bournemouth. Now, Division 1 South West is the one that's a little bit of a mess already. Cardiff City didn't play games because they were supposed to come up against Maidenhead, and then they had international call-ups with Wales. So they're in 4th, and they're 4 points off the top, but they've only played 2 games. They've got maximum points. If they were to win those games, they'd go back clear. Don't forget they scored, 9 and 6, or was it 8 and 7 in their first 2 games. They're on a 15 goal difference already. So Cardiff City look like they're trying to break goal scoring records this season. Top at the moment is AFC Bournemouth, who are taking on Swindon Town, currently in 8th. AFC Austell, called bottom of the table at the moment. They're one of 4 teams yet to get off the mark, though, in Division 1 South West. They take on Southampton Women, who are in 7th. I think Cardiff against Exeter is the game of the day in South West. Again, 4th versus 2nd, but you've got essentially 4th but on maximum points against joint top at the moment. So I think that's going to be the game of the day in South West. Keynsham Town against Larkhall Athletic. They're two of the sides that are yet to get off the mark. So again, one of those will do by the end of Sunday. Portishead against Moneyfields are the two mid-table sides, 5th against 6th, who are kind of, even though it's early days, are kind of in the, I'll say danger, but not really danger, of just becoming these mid-table teams that very quickly end up in no man's land. They're already 5 points away from any danger, but 5 points away from the top. And being 2 games away from the top or the bottom, having only played 3 or 4 games respectively, they're kind of, you feel they want to string some results together to put themselves still in that kind of top third and in that conversation, because otherwise it might end up very quickly, and that goes for some other teams in the other leagues as well, that it is just going to be a mid-table season for them, which from Moneyfield's point of view, I'm sure they're absolutely fine with, having just come up. And 5 points already, staying away from that bottom 2, staying in the FA Women's National League will definitely be what they are going for. But I think on balance, looking at all of those fixtures, that the game of the day this weekend is in the Northern Premier Division between Forest and Wolves. It feels like it's a very important game for the Northern Premier Division already this early on in the season, particularly with Forest coming up against Derby in a couple of weeks' time as well. And I think that is going to prove to be a very important game at Eastwood. But as I said, I knew this was going to be a bit of a shorter episode because there wasn't as much on with the death of Queen Elizabeth II. So next week, we're going to have a look at all of those results from Sunday. We'll have a look at what that means for the tables, and we'll look ahead again to the cup fixtures coming up this weekend. Thank you very much for joining me. Of course, as I say every week, if you want to get involved with the show, you can leave a comment down below. You can get in touch on Twitter at Chris_Gadsby. Keep supporting your local women's football team. They really would love you to get down there if you can on Sunday. But thank you very much for watching and listening if you've been on the move while this show has been going out. But thank you for your continued support with this show, and goodbye.